This is a video about the Comutacar, and first thing I wanted to talk about are the keys. The silver key is the ignition key. The middle key is goes to the rear window lock, so the rear window can be opened. And the outer brass key is the key to the car doors. The door key, if you push it in all the way, it won't work. You have to push it all the way and pull it out slightly, and then probably wiggle it a little bit to get it to work. But once you do that a couple times, you won't have any problems. Okay, I want to talk about starting the car. First thing you have to do is turn on this switch. If you can see it. It's here just below the seat, and that turns on the DC-DC converter, and without that you can't do anything else. The next thing you do is put the ignition key in the ignition, and what I do is turn that on, and you'll hear the warning buzzer come on for the seat belts. But also you need to turn on these two dash switches, and then also take off the emergency brake. So if the emergency brake isn't off, it won't run. So when you're finished driving the car, after you put the emergency brake on, turn off the ignition. I always put the switches back to where they were, the forward reverse in neutral position. The two dash switches I turn off. The one below the seat for the DC converter I turn off. And that way you just don't have a problem. And just remember, if the car ever fails to go, just make sure that the emergency brake is off. That's something that's easy to forget. And the other issue is there is a hot light for the motor, and if that light ever comes on, you really need to pull over and let the motor cool down. It does work, it does come on, because I've actually checked the motor temperature. Motor gets up to around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, or maybe a little beyond that, and then when it does, that light comes on. That's what it's supposed to do. And it will happen if it's a hot summer day and you're basically driving a number of miles. So trips where you do a few miles and stop, and a few more miles and stop, work a lot better because they give the motor a chance to cool. Also, when the motor's hot, it doesn't work as efficiently. There's a lot more resistance. And speaking of heat from the motor, the car does have heat. This is the lever, because it says heat, that you pull out. One problem though is that in the summer, and the heat vent is right here. Again, it's right behind your right leg. In the summer we cover it, and that's what this cover, it's a little bit of felt and a plastic cover, because even with the red knob pushed all the way in, it leaks heat, and that's pretty uncomfortable in the summer. So when it gets cooler, you'll want to take this off so you can actually enjoy the heat. In the summer, most of the heat's just vented down to the ground, but enough leaks out that you do need to save that cover and put it back on every summer to stay comfortable. To lock the car, you just, on the passenger door, you just basically slide that lever over to lock it. The driver's door, you want to lock it with the key. And then to lock the windows, you just slide them all the way closed and push the knob down. And it's pretty crude, but it does keep people from sliding the windows open. So it's that simple. So whenever you work on the batteries or anything under the seat, for instance, there are lots of open connections that aren't insulated, and it's just really not possible to insulate everything. So you don't want to have any rings on, any jewelry of any kind, or if you touch the wrong area, you can burn an appendage right off your hand. So you do want to be very careful with that. But here you can see one of the other two batteries that's under the seat, along with the controller and the forward reverse contactor and lots of other bits. Each bumper has an access panel that allows you to get to the 3 batteries that are behind each bumper, and it's very easy to get off. Once you open it, you can see the 3 batteries that are in there. When you do any work on this car, you want to make sure to, I usually disconnect this connection right here, but it doesn't really matter which one. And then once you disconnect it, you'll see the voltmeter go down to 0. And then basically at that point, you know it's safe to work on the car. When you reconnect one of these, or when you reconnect the very last cable that supplies the 48 volts back to the whole system, you don't want to just put the cable right back on the battery. You'll get a huge spark. And what I do is I use a piece of cable, alligator clips on it, and a large resistor. I think this is about a 1 watt resistor, and it's about I don't know, 20 ohms or something like that. And I use that to slowly let the current go back through the system, and I watch the voltmeter through the back door. You can just barely see it there. And when the voltage gets up to about 40-some volts, then it's safe to take that off, and then you can just reconnect the cable, and you won't get a spark. And the spark's due to the capacitors that are in the motor controller. It's not harmful, but it's not a great thing either. When charging the car, you just pull out the cord, plug it into a 110 outlet. You can plug it into a 15 amp outlet, but it will strain the circuit breaker a little bit. I did have a 30 amp outlet installed in my garage just for this, but you can get away without it. But just be aware that it may damage the circuit breaker that outlet is hooked to. When you charge, you need to open the back end of the car. So that the charger can get lots of air. The charger is temperature compensated, and it gets pretty warm, and so that you won't get the proper charge to the batteries unless you let air flow around the charger. So it's an important thing to remember. I have actually added a fan onto the charger, which it didn't have originally, to help keep it cool and keep the air moving. The charger has lights. I'm kind of pointing to them. There's a line of lights. There's a bunch of red ones and a green one at the bottom. When all the red ones go out and the green one is on, the batteries are fully charged. You can also follow the charge state of the batteries using the voltmeter that's at the bottom of the dash. And basically when the batteries get down to 48 volts, when there's no current being drawn, they're empty. And there's sort of a guideline on the side of the voltmeter there that tells you when you have a given resting voltage what percentage of charge is left. So that's nice to pay attention to. These gauges on the dash are not hooked up. They were used with the old charger that's called a Lester charger. Those chargers will destroy almost any lead-acid battery, and you really don't want to use them. That's one of the first things I took out of the car and threw away. And the charger that's in the car is a special charger for gel batteries. So you don't ever use any other charger or you'll damage the batteries. The bumpers and the roof and the side stripes are all painted on with latex paint. So if you want to redo them, you can just sand them a little bit and go over them with latex paint. It works really well if you use a roller. It just looks more even, looks more like it's not made out of wood. Also the tires, I keep 32 pounds of air pressure in the tires, and that seems to work well. Obviously, since the car doesn't have a whole lot of power, tire pressure is pretty critical to your range and speed.